Okay, boxing fanatics, welcome to the fifth episode of the Boxing Fanatics podcast. Delighted to be joined once again by Mr. Oscar Pick. Oscar, wow, what a night of boxing it was yesterday. I think sometimes we forget how lucky we are to have nights like this. I mean, I don't think I can remember a night like that where every fight was just so good. It was so entertaining. I think I was sat down for about 7 hours, but no regrets. Anyway, let's start off with the main event. Dmitry Bivol avenging his loss to Artur Beterbiev via majority decision. Yeah, what did you make of the main event? Bivol beating Beterbiev.
I thought it was an exceptional performance, mate. I thought the rematch somehow surpassed the first fight. I mean, the first fight was brilliant. Like it was just such a great chess match. Obviously, the technical ability on display was just incredible. But this fight just seemed to have an extra layer of drama to it because you obviously had Bivol who came out with a really fast start. He looked really good early doors, and then all of a sudden, Beterbiev, this wrecking machine, he just comes marching forward. And at one point in those sort of mid rounds, I actually thought Beterbiev was getting to Bivol, and I thought he could even get the stoppage because he was digging in some real spiteful body shots in there. And I thought to myself, God, Bivol really needs a second windy. He needs something to just get himself back into the fight because the momentum was firmly in Beterbiev's favour at that point. And then all of a sudden, Bivol just produces this incredible response. I've never actually seen anything like it. The only thing I could possibly compare it to was the Usyk Fury fight, the first fight where Usyk, he went through a few difficult rounds, and then all of a sudden he starts, piling on the pressure and starts dominating Fury. And it was a similar sort of story with Bivol, I thought. I mean, from my experience, like I've done a little bit of boxing myself, not to any high level, but I I know how difficult it is to maintain, that footwork, that movement, that lateral movement, and the gas tank that you need to be able to do that is just you can't even put it into words how difficult that is to do. But Bivol did it to just a ridiculously, good degree. I'd say he started to take over from about round seven onwards. And the difference between the first fight and this one was the fact that he actually finished the stronger of the two. Obviously, Beterbiev, famously nicked those last two rounds in the first fight, but this one, I was just so impressed with Bivol, and we saw a member of his corner team sort of massaging his legs or rubbing his legs in between rounds, and you know, I, obviously that was all geared towards allowing him to just keep pumping those legs and just keep moving around the ring. And yeah, I thought it was a great performance. And before the scorecards were read out, I was just praying that Bivol actually got the decision because I thought he probably won the first fight. And then this one, I thought it was probably a clearer victory. And ultimately, he's undisputed champion. So yeah, what an achievement.
No, no, absolutely. I think you're right. I think the first fight was entertaining as well. But I think this fight, yeah, what was different was the momentum, like you mentioned. And because Bivol was true, I remember last fight against Beterbiev, he was getting caught quite a lot. I feel like he was maybe running a little bit in the last fight, in the last few rounds. Beterbiev was really like stumping forwards, was hitting some nice body shots. And I think that's maybe what cost him in the first fight. He just, towards the latter stages, he wasn't really throwing that much. And Beterbiev was kind of dominating to an extent, but you're absolutely right. Um, it's weird because Beterbiev had those middle rounds where yeah, he was coming forward and because he was up in the pace, it was almost a bit surprising. I think because Bivol started really well, and then it was almost like Beterbiev was just like started to pile the pressure on. And yeah, it's true those middle rounds, he was really going for Bivol, and it's true. I mean, it'd be a stretch to say I thought Bivol was going to get stopped, but he was taking some damage actually in those middle rounds. Beterbiev was really coming for him. And then again, yeah, the momentum shifted and Bivol started to get into his groove again. I mean, Bivol, what a fighter. I mean, the way he kind of rolled Beterbiev shots a few times. Kind of, it was like the ball and the matador a little bit. So skillful. I love his hand speed. And yeah, credit to Beterbiev as well. What a fighter! What a monster! 40 years old, didn't stop coming the whole night. Kept landing those thudding shots. But I agree. Bivol deserved the win. I think last time was probably closer. This time, I think, yeah, Bivol was the deserved victor. I think it'd be hard to give Beterbiev this win, but I don't criticize anyone who thinks Beterbiev because it was still a close fight. It was still very competitive, but yeah, Bivol one each now. And funny enough, the scorecards are actually the same in reverse. So I think it's 116, 112, 115, 113, and then 114, 114 the first time and now that's in reverse in favor of Bivol. So anyway, despite being called the last crescendo, it doesn't look like it's going to be the last crescendo. So a trilogy is on the way. What do you think about a trilogy, Oscar? Do you want a trilogy? What do you think?
Yeah, I think a trilogy makes sense. You know, there was talks about a trilogy happening before this rematch, and I wasn't so sure because you know the first fight was so good. I was almost expecting the rematch to not quite deliver to the same level, but obviously it did, and in my opinion, it was an even better fight. So, the third fight could be, for all we know, it could be even better than the rematch. So yeah, I mean, those two, they just complement each other so well. I mean, their styles will always gel to make an incredible spectacle, and yeah, I just think, it's so close. Like, even though I thought Bivol was obviously the deserved winner last night, as you say, it was still a close fight, good competitive fight. You just have to question how long Beterbiev can keep doing this for. As you say there, he's 40 years of age. By the time a trilogy rolls around, he's gonna be creeping into I don't know when his date of birth is, but I'm guessing he's gonna be 41 fairly soon.
Mhm.
You just have to question what he has left in the tank. Obviously, last night he proved that he definitely has a lot left in the tank. It was still a tremendous performance from him, but we see it with fighters at these last stages in their careers a lot where it's an old cliche, but sometimes they just get old overnight. And you see like a great performance from them, a few months before, and then the next thing they're not quite the same in the next fight.
Mm.
Um, but Bivol, he shouldn't be too concerned about that. I mean, as far as he's concerned, he's obviously the undisputed champion, and he'll firmly believe that he can replicate that in a trilogy. But yeah, I think it does make a lot of sense. The only other options for Bivol, he's actually got quite a few options. He's got a potential fight with David Benavidez. He
Mm.
mentioned Callum Smith, who obviously had a great win against Joshua Buatsi. And
Mhm.
there's the Canelo rematch, which fans might not be clamoring for because obviously Bivol beat him quite comprehensively in the first fight, but
Mhm.
that's arguably a bigger money fight for Bivol. I mean, if Canelo beats Terence Crawford, then all of a sudden Dmitry Bivol Canelo Alvarez, that's a huge fight for next year. So there's plenty of options for him to consider. But I would like to see the trilogy to answer your question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense, doesn't it? It's like a rubber match. They won a piece now, and no one's complaining watching them two fight. It's like you're guaranteed an amazing spectacle each time, and they've got this style that, yeah, like you said, really complements each other. And I just feel like no matter how many times these guys face each other, it's always going to be very entertaining. It's always going to be a close fight. With Bivol, yeah, I mean, I could really imagine that with Canelo, to be fair. If Canelo beats Crawford, and I can imagine Canelo coming back to light heavyweight and trying to get like undisputed crown because there'd be a lot on the line for him in that he'd have a lot to win. Um, he'd have less to lose really because no one would expect him to come up to 175 and beat Bivol, especially last time. But Beterbiev, yeah, 40 years old. I mean, it's like they all say, a father time is undefeated, but I don't know. He doesn't look like he's slowing down. I'm also open to them kind of going up in weight. I did see something on Twitter about Bivol going up. He said someone asked him about cruiserweight, and he said, why not? And I could see that as well. I mean, Bivol's obviously a bit younger than Beterbiev. He probably has time, but then yeah, like you said, you have to consider money as well, and Canelo's always gonna be the money fight. I feel for Benavidez actually a little bit. He's kind of ringside there, and he's like, oh, kind of complicates stuff for him because like, oh, I probably need to wait again
Oh,
potentially.
I wouldn't mind seeing Benavidez against Callum Smith, to be fair. I mean,
Mm.
before that Buatsi fight, everyone would have piled on their money for a Benavidez win, potentially inside the distance, but he's completely reignited his career. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. But that'd be an interesting fight as well.
Yeah, in that case, let's move on to that then, because that was arguably fight of the night. I think it was fight of the night, to be honest. Callum Smith outpointing Joshua Buatsi. It was amazing. I actually picked Buatsi to win. I thought Buatsi would be a little bit more fresher than Callum Smith. Callum obviously had a couple of hard losses, sorry, to Canelo and Beterbiev. But Smith, he showed a lot of hunger last night. He showed like he still wanted it, and it was a good win. It's a good win. What did you think of Smith's win yesterday?
I was really surprised, to be honest, because like you, I picked Buatsi to win, and I was pretty confident with that pick, to be honest. The only thing that really does frustrate me about Buatsi is he shows so much potential in these performances. Like we saw it against Willie Hutchinson and Dan Aziz, where he'd hurt his opponents, but he wouldn't sustain these attacks for a long period of time. Like he hurt those guys multiple times in those fights, and he just kind of takes his foot off the gas, or he has these long spells of inactivity in these fights, which really kills him as it goes down the stretch. Because obviously he gave away so many rounds by doing that. Obviously, you have to give Callum Smith a lot of credit because he was the one um, kind of pressing the action, especially in those sort of middle rounds. And Buatsi, he had to really kind of make those adjustments and adapt to what Smith was doing. But at the same time, Buatsi, he came out uh, sort of all guns blazing in those first few rounds. I was quite impressed with how he looked. But he just didn't maintain that same aggression throughout the fight. And I actually thought Buatsi hurt Smith a couple times fairly early on. But again, he just couldn't sustain that. And Smith with his experience, yeah, I guess he knows how to sort of navigate the full 12 round distance a little bit better. And I think we saw that last night. He was able to kind of obviously up his work rate for certain rounds where you saw that Buatsi might have been lower in his work rate,
Mhm.
and obviously I believe if I remember rightly, he finished quite strong as well. I heard Buatsi's corner team, Virgil Hunter, say he might need a knockout in those last few rounds, and I think obviously he did need a knockout, but still he wasn't really fighting with that same kind of tenacity that he looked to have had early doors. So
Mhm.
yeah, I thought it was a great win for Smith. I wasn't expecting that kind of performance at all, so I was really impressed with him. But
Mhm.
again, with Buatsi, he just kind of he shows these glimpses of some real talent and just
Mhm.
like he's a real special fighter, but he just didn't quite deliver that last night.
No, so it's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. Does he lack the gas tank a little bit, Boatsy? I mean, you could argue against Willie Hutchinson. He started to get a bit tired towards the end of the round, towards the end of the fight. I was also surprised though. I guess I don't know if crude's a bit harsh, but it was a little bit crude, Boatsy. The way he was kind of coming forward, and he was kind of leaning on Smith a lot and coming in close. I thought Boatsy would maybe use his boxing skills a bit more. Maybe he did use his jab a fair amount, but there was also a lot of times throughout the fight, he was just really getting in close to Smith and almost a bit of dirty boxing there, to be fair. And I think that's why Smith actually won the fight because he just produced a cleaner work throughout. I was really impressed with Smith's, shot selection, the left hook landing a lot, and he just seemed like he had a bit more quality than Boatsy. But there's nothing to take away from Boatsy. I thought he showed a lot of heart. He's obviously physically strong. He's the slightly shorter man in there, but he was I mean, I don't know. He was pushing Smith back a lot, so definitely a very strong guy. Don't know if he has. I don't know. Does he lack a little bit of power? I don't know. He did catch Smith a few times on clean shots. Smith didn't really show any signs of buckling. And then in the last few rounds, it's true his corner was telling they were telling Boatsy to and I think it was the right advice. I think he did need a knockout in the last few rounds. Um, but Smith is true. I mean, I think like yourself, I don't know. I just thought I thought Buatsy just be a little bit too fresh. So would you? So with Smith, where does he kind of go? Because I don't know. He's kind of been not found out, but he wasn't good enough against Beterbiev. So I mean, yes, Bivol styles make fights, I suppose. But so you would like to see how do you see a Smith Benavides fight kind of going then?
Well, I'd only really want to see that fight if Bivol and Beterbiev do their trilogy because it kind of makes sense, right? And because obviously, if they go into the trilogy, then you've got Smith and Benavides who have they've established themselves as the two best contenders in that light heavyweight division. It would make sense for them to fight, and the winner of that fight to then potentially face the winner of their trilogy, Bivol and Beterbiev's trilogy. Don't get me wrong, I'd favour Benavides massively in that fight. Like Callum Smith, it was a great performance against Boratsi, but David Benavides is obviously, he's a different beast. So I would
Yeah.
favour Benavides massively in that fight. But this is a level that Callum Smith wants to be competing at. So, if you want to be the best, you've got to fight the best. And David Benavides is he's obviously one of the best out there. So I mean that's the only reason I want to see that match up really.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. I think Smith's made it clear he wants to keep competing at the highest level. And apart from Bivol Beterbiev, yeah, I think Benavides is definitely the next top guy. And I don't think money is a motivation for Smith at this stage. I mean, you hear that he's made a lot of obviously he had the fight against Canelo, Beterbiev, so I'm sure he's set for life. So Smith really it's about challenging himself. And like you said, if it's about challenging yourself, then yeah, you've definitely got to take on the best possible contenders. That's a great win against Boatsy. Let's see how he does against I mean, if it happens against Benavides, I think a lot of people would be backing Benavides, but you never know. You never know. And, that's definitely a fight he'd be up for. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of hype behind Benavides. Smith would have no issue, getting up for that fight, basically. Let's move on to the heavyweights. So, Joseph, I mean, what a week that was. I mean, Dubois pulled out. I mean, I was not expecting that. I was shocked, to be fair. Martin Bakoli comes in on 2 days' notice, which was very dangerous. But Parker knocks him out in 2 rounds. What did you make of Parker Bakoli last night?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those fights because it was put together such short notice. You kind of didn't really know how it would play out. I mean, the way it did play out was always a possibility, just because Martin Bakoli, we saw I think he weighed in at around 315 pounds,
Hmm.
so we knew that he wasn't, looking to go past the fifth or sixth round. I think his gas tank simply just wasn't there, and I think he had a decent amount of success in that first round, but obviously got caught by that big looping right hand over the top.
Mhm.
That obviously scrambled his senses, and I
Mhm.
thought Billy Nelson made the right call there. To be honest, I mean when you're coming in at about 48 hours notice, you don't really want to be taking any unnecessary risks. At the end of the day, he had a go. He sort of rolled the dice in that sense, but he probably could have continued. He got back to his feet,
Mhm.
and he might have even made it into the third round. But I thought Billy Nelson, sensible bit of corner work there. They've obviously uh, they've obviously taken that fight for the money, which is fair enough. You can't
Yeah.
really blame them. He had a fight with FA Jagba coming up.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, Martin Bakoli, for all we know, he could have firmly believed that he would have beat Parker. But it was a real, it was a difficult ask with fighting a man who's coming off a full training camp
Mhm.
and is also in the best shape of his life. I don't think we've ever seen Parker in this good shape.
Yeah.
So it was always going to be a difficult fight for him. And I thought, Billy Nelson pulled him out at the right time. And they've walked away with a massive paycheck. So it's not bad for a night's work really.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, to be fair. I'm sure he got paid very handsomely, and I'm sure Billy Nelson got his cut as well. But yeah, absolutely. Parker, I think this is like Parker 2.0, to be honest. I couldn't believe how big he looked. Um, 200 267 pounds, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
7 pounds. looks absolutely massive, but he also doesn't look like he's lost his speed or anything like that. So I'm excited to see what Parker's going to do. Bacoli is always dangerous. I mean, to be honest, I was a bit worried for Parker because I think there was a lot to lose, really, in some ways, because Parker obviously he had that title shot against Dubois. Then Dubois pulls out. Then all of a sudden, he's putting his mandatory position. Well, I know Bacoli's got with the IBF and stuff, but still, he's kind of putting the WBO on the line against Bacoli. And let's be honest, on 2 days' notice, it'd be quite embarrassing for Parker as well if he loses to Bacoli. I know Bacoli's the boogeyman. We know how good Bacoli is, irrespective of what happened in that fight. So there was a lot to lose for Parker there. Um, Bacoli, yeah, I mean, he got caught on the top of the head. I mean, I saw in an interview, he kind of compared it to like, when Joshua got on top of the head with like Ruiz. And then kind of, I think those shots on the top of the head really kind of, they rock your equilibrium. But I think overall, I mean, obviously, have you heard anything about Bacoli's kind of next step? Has he still got that fight with a Jaguar? Is that still there, or has that been kind of scrapped? What do you have any information about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Billy Nelson confirmed that that was still very much the case. He confirmed that before the Parker fight even took place, and then Turki Al-Sheikh he said in an interview as well that that fight's still very much being planned for that card in May, which take place in New York. I think they're
Mm.
even looking at staging it in Times Square. That'll be on the same card as Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, he's still got the Jagba fight. And so in theory, like obviously, no one wants to take a knockout defeat, but he hasn't taken too much punishment in the ring in that sense, and he's going straight into a fight with Jagba. So in theory, he hasn't really lost much from that. If anything, he's gained something from it. Obviously, a decent amount of money.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it'll be an interesting fight with the Jagba. It'll be interesting to see how many people are still backing a Coley after that performance.
Mm.
I'll be honest, I actually, everyone was kind of saying, even before the Parker fight kind of emerged, that Bacoli would just run straight through a Jagba, but I see it being a much more competitive and interesting fight than that. I think a Jagba could potentially pose him some problems. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
Yep. So yeah, you're right. I mean, so when you take that into account, he hasn't lost much. It's true. I mean, so he's basically still got his mandatory position then. So I mean, if anything, I mean, we always hear Billy Nelson and Bacoli saying no one wants to fight them. I mean, if anything, that loss should make him look a bit less of the boogeyman. He got knocked out in 2 rounds on paper. So, maybe people will be more willing to fight him now. But I guess when you're in a mandatory position, you're gonna get your shot eventually. We know a Jagba hits really hard, so let's see what happens there. All African affair, who knows? It might bring out the absolute best in a Jagba, and yeah, I mean Bacoli. Let's see. Obviously, he didn't have a full camp for Parker and stuff. But I think we shouldn't let that one performance kind of detract from what he is. We saw what he done to Anderson. We have to imagine that if he had a full camp for Parker, he would have he would have done better. Maybe he would have won. Who knows? I think Parker maybe always had a good chance to win that fight regardless. But we'll never know, I suppose. But whatever the case, Parker's won. Um, and Bacoli, he comes again. He's still going to be a major player in the heavyweight division. Let's talk about another heavyweight. Wow, Ajit Kabayel. I mean, I gotta say, I love watching Kabayel fight, to be honest. I think he's just a very different heavyweight. I mean, the body punches, I mean, it sounds kind of sadistic to say, but they're so satisfying to watch, when he lands those body punches. And yeah, Zile Zhang in the 6th round, I mean, he couldn't take no more. What did you think of Kabayel's performance?
Yeah, I was backing him before the fight, but I was almost expecting him to win on points because I thought with Zhang, he just looks indestructible. Like before this fight, honestly, I don't remember a time when Zhang really got caught flush on the chin and sort of took a bit of a wobble. Obviously, Caballero, as you said, just broke him down to the body, which was obviously a smart tactic considering uh, Zhang's lack of an engine, really. I mean, we know how dangerous Zhang can be for the first 3 or 4 rounds. But after that, I mean, we saw it almost happened, surprisingly early on, where he just starts starts breathing really heavy, and I'm now like at that point I'm questioning how much more Zhang can give it in the fight. And then all of a sudden he finds a left hand from out of nowhere and drops Zhang, which was, it made it obviously a more dramatic fight. But then Caballero gets straight back up, and as you say, he's probably the best body puncher in the heavyweight division, because I've seen a few people mention, and it's a good point really, that not a lot of heavyweights really work the body as well as
Mm,
Caballero does, and he's really good in that sense. He's obviously a lot or a bit shorter than most of these guys.
mm,
Still, built built like a tank basically. He's quite thick set,
mm,
but he's able to cause a lot of these bigger guys problems with his speed and his aggression. I think those two attributes kind of mesh quite well, and obviously, he broke him down to the body and got the stoppage, which was a great performance. And if you didn't believe that Caballero was one of the top contenders in the heavyweight division, then you're definitely going to believe that now, because he's coming off, you know, arguably one of the best runs of form out
mm.
of any heavyweight out there, really. You know, you got Zhang, Frank Sanchez, and the
Makhmudov.
Russian, who I forget his name,
Makhmudov, yeah,
but
Arslan Makhmudov.
Makhmudov, exactly. So yeah, I think Caballero's a real problem. I would like to see a fight between him and Joseph Parker, just because I
Mm.
think it'd be really interesting. But Parker's sort of already said that he's pushing on towards world titles. He wants to become a two-time world champion, obviously. So whether he'd be interested in that fight, I'm not sure, but it would still be a really good one for the fans. And I think Caballero deserves a shot at one of the big dogs as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think Parker deserves a world title shot. I think after that and after the pullout and stuff, but let's see, maybe Dubois might go straight into a fight with Usyk. That's a possibility. Caballero. I mean, the thing with Zhang, I think those first 3 rounds, I think he is incredible. I mean, that the hand speed he has for such a big man is mental. You know, he's so dangerous. But yeah, Zhang, that engine is just I don't know, well, non-existent's a bit strong, but it's not great. And that old saying about body shots, like it's like putting money in the bank, and it does pay off. And it definitely did pay off in that fight. I mean, I don't think Zhang was like necessarily that hurt. I think it was just more exhaustion that got him. Caballero, it's interesting to see who's going to fight next, because I don't think he's gonna get a world title shot next. That's the reality. The belts are kind of, I mean, 3 of them with Usyk, the other ones with Dubois. They might fight each other. So I mean, it's almost like he has no choice but to fight another top contender. So Caballero Parker would be a great fight. I mean, I would say they're similar in some ways. I mean, I guess the old Parker was more fluid. Maybe this is like a new, more powerful Parker coming through. But still, Parker, I'd say, has also a very good run. I mean, Wilder, Zhang, and now Bakoli on paper, that's amazing as well. Um, but yeah, okay, let's move on to Carlos Adames versus Hamza Shiraz. Going into this fight, I heard Eddie Hearn saying a few times in interviews that, Carlos Adames is a top fighter, and he was backing him to beat Shiraz. And in the end, it was a draw. But yeah, what did you think of this one?
Really interesting fight. It did not play out how I expected it at all. You're right. Adama is a really good fighter, but I don't think he's, anything special. He doesn't do anything particularly, incredible. Where you see some of these pound for pound great fighters like Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev. He's not at that level. He's not like a world beater, but he's a solid world champion. He knows how to find his way around a ring. But with Hamza Shiraz, I was expecting him to come through that test, and he looked really sharp early on, and then all of a sudden in the middle rounds he just starts sort of fading away a little bit, and he hasn't got the same zip in his shots. I found it quite funny how you had his promoter Frank Warren start marching over to his corner,
Mm,
starts calling out instructions, telling him to throw the uppercut. I'm thinking to myself, well, he has actually got a trainer in there who's probably trying to, tell him what to do. But you got Frank Warren who's given his 2 cents. And then you had Turk Al Sheikh, who I don't know if you saw, but he actually revealed the scorecards to Hamza Shiraz in between a couple of the rounds, which that's um,
Not a
the
good look.
fact that he's able to do that, and at this point, Turk Al Sheikh will just basically do whatever he wants, and he'll get everyone will be quite happy for him to do that. But that's a bit of a slap in the face for Carlos Adames, who it's clear who the golden boy is in that fight. But yeah, ultimately Shiraz just couldn't quite hand couldn't quite deal with the pressure and the intensity that Carlos Adames was bringing. And Frank Warren even said after the fight that I think he broke his hand in the middle of the fight, which kind of explains his change of performance, really. But ultimately, he didn't do enough. And I think a draw, there's been a bit of controversy surrounding that. I'm not too mad at it because I don't think Carlos Adames won ridiculously widely. Like he definitely won the fight, but I don't think it was by a considerable margin. But yeah, Hamza Shiraz definitely didn't win that one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was interesting because, like you said, I think at the start, Shiraz really, I thought it was going to be, it looked very easy for him. It just looked like Shiraz is just so tall, isn't he? And he dwarfs most of these middleweights. That reach, it feels like, it felt like Adames you know, had to reach so far. Like it looked like he had to, yeah, had to reach so far just to connect. But after, it's true, he was connecting. And yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe broke his hand, like you said. Yeah, Shearer just kind of stopped throwing to an extent. It was strange. That's definitely the worst, I guess, I've seen Shearer's in some ways for a while because he looks incredible the last few fights. I mean, Tyler Denny. I know Tyler Denny's, they say he's like European level, but Amo Williams, there's some potential there, and he dispatched of him. So it was a weird fight. It's true, it was a weird fight, and like you said, I think Carlos Adames did win did deserve the nod, but Shiraz, he did. Shiraz was winning the early parts of the fight quite clearly. It'll be interesting what happens next. Is it a rematch? Is it a bit of a step back from Shiraz now? Maybe Frank Warren. Maybe okay, he's maybe not quite ready yet, or was it just a bad night? Let's see. Before we finish, let's just touch on the two other fights that were on the card. Virgil Ortiz outpointing Israel Madrimov. I hold my hands up as I picked Madrimov here. But Ortiz just too much in the end, just coming forward, landing bombs. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Caballero and how good he is to the body. I'd say Ortiz is pound for pound one of the best body punchers out there.
Mm.
He just knows how to find the openings, and I was really impressed with how Madrimov was able to, keep pumping his feet, even after getting caught with those sickening body shots. Madrimov looked brilliant in the first maybe 4 rounds. The way he was moving around the ring, it was so fluid. He had his hands down by his waist. He looked elusive. He was pot shotting Ortiz, and I thought, he could have been on course to win quite a wide decision at that point. But Ortiz obviously came on strong, and he banked in a lot of those mid to late rounds. And yeah, I think Madrimov definitely started feeling the pressure from Ortiz. He's very good at applying that front foot pressure, is Ortiz, and he's very aggressive. He's a fan friendly fighter as well. I thought it was a really absorbing watch. He pumps out that jab nicely. As I say, he's really prolific to the body. So yeah, I thought he won quite a fair decision there. Machimov did say after the fight that the doctor actually advised him not to fight Ortiz because I think he had bronchitis or he was suffering from some sort of illness,
Yeah.
which is interesting that he's coming out with that now. But it didn't seem to affect his performance that much because I thought he still looks really good in there.
Yeah, I think Madrimov just lacked a bit of. I don't know if he lacks power or not, but he just couldn't stop Ortiz coming forward. But Ortiz looks massive at the weight as well. He looks so strong, and it's kind of similar to. I mean, at the start, yeah, Madrimov was boxing beautifully on the back foot. It felt like Ortiz couldn't get close, and all of a sudden it just all changed, and then Ortiz was just all over him like a rash, really. He just just dominating him, to be honest. I did hear about Majimov's supposed illness. I don't know. I don't know if I think Ortiz maybe just has too much for him overall over the 12 rounds. Ortiz is just relentless, too relentless. To finish, let's Shakur Stevenson stops Josh Padley. Josh Padley, obviously, very little notice again. We love the story about Josh Padley. I hope someone signs him. I hope a big promoter signs him and he can leave that electrician job. What did you think of Stevenson Padley?
Yeah, as you say, it's a great story with Padley, and I think after that performance, you're right. He needs a big opportunity. Like he can't just be cast to side now. I think he's, it's amazing, really. Josh Padley going 9 rounds with one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. Like I know Shakur Stevenson obviously isn't a big puncher, but you still expect someone of his level to just overwhelm Padley and probably get him out of there within like the first few rounds. But I was I was actually so impressed with Padley. Like I was almost couldn't believe what I was watching. Where he was never in the fight, but he was giving a great account of himself, and he was able to get through each round unscathed. And I mean, the heart that he showed was just it's amazing. And he kept getting off the canvas in that ninth round. He got put down 3 times, and ultimately it was a corner who halted the contest, which I thought was the right decision. But Padley would have just kept fighting and fighting and getting up after those body shots as well. Like he showed a tremendous pair of balls there to just keep getting up. And he's a good fighter. I mean, clearly he's not on the level of Shakur Stevenson, but he's still a very good fighter. He showed that in there. He showed that against Mark Chamberlain as well. So yeah, hats off to Padley. I think what I saw from him, that was almost my highlight of the night. Really seeing Josh Padley produce that performance because yeah, that's exactly what you want to see really from an electrician. It was midway fitting solar panels when he got the call up, and for him to go and do that is just yeah, it's a great story.
100%. It's almost like a bit of a meme, like Josh Padley, the electrician, just comes in. But yeah, amazing. Yeah, amazing story. I hope, and I think he done okay. He done okay. Obviously, Stevenson is pound for pound. I mean, it was always going to be, I mean, beyond an upset for him to beat Stevenson. But I think he definitely raised his stock again. He's definitely a very tough guy, Padley. Like you said, he got dropped 3 times. He would have carried on if it wasn't for his corner. And I think there is some talent there as well. I'm hoping, you know, one of the big promoters just signs him and he can, just have a shot, actually be kind of the A side a little bit, which would be nice. Maybe get a title shot at some sort of level. Because he deserves it. We love these stories in boxing. That's what it's all about. So we love these kind of rocky stories of where, he's an electrician, he gets a call out. He wasn't meant to beat Chamberlain, he wasn't meant to fight Stevenson, but he did. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys, for listening. We hope you enjoyed last night. It was an amazing night of boxing. Thanks a lot to Oscar Pick again for joining me again. And yeah, look, if you like this episode, by all means, subscribe, comment, like, and yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.